Hello, friends. Welcome back to Bitcoin Escape Plan. As always, this is not investing advice. Cryptocurrency involves risk and trading involves loss sometimes. This is just for education and entertainment purposes. All right, let's get into it. So yesterday I talked about the weekly time frame and some of the things that we need to look at on the monthly SMA as well. Today I'm going to focus on the daily and the 4 hour. And then on Sunday, I will check back in on what we need to see for the weekly and the daily. And pretty much just going to take the day off tomorrow and be a normal human. Anyways, let's take a look. So we closed today at, looks like 85 on the nose, right about there. What does that tell us? Well, if we take a look at the broader trend, we haven't been to that level since around April. This is where we are right now. So 85, that's where the close is. So if you look, it's kind of at the top of the range here in April. So it makes sense that we would have needed to retest that level. Probably a bit easier to see on the weekly time frame, to be honest with you. But that's essentially what's happening right now is this whole trend up here is currently in the process of being not quite invalidated, but we are losing any of the momentum that we had up towards 126 and retracing back to these older targets I think are very important. Like the bottom then was around 75, which is only slightly higher than the initial 2024 peak before the halving, which is right around there, 73.8. So anytime we see levels like that, it stands to reason that the price is going to want to double check to make sure that we're done before we move on. And now that's predicated within the context that we keep going higher in a predictable fashion, which it does seem like that's kind of what we're moving towards. Let me hide those real quick. Hide that guy real quick. So if you look at the trend, actually I'm going to have to switch to a higher time frame. So if you look at the trend, it used to be more parabolic. So we're flat, we go way, way up, and then we go down. I talked about this yesterday. And then a bit of chop, and then same thing, wicked parabolic. We drop in half, we go back up, we drop. But now, as you can see, this is way more extended than these previous ones were, like considerably more extended. Now, I'm not sure if it's just that it's been a longer time period since the bottoms, and therefore we technically could see the levels that everybody's talking about, which is like here. I hear a lot of people talking about 50. I hear a lot of people talking about 25. I don't really believe 25 personally, but there is a decent amount of evidence that we could go back to around here, 31, 32, or possibly a bit higher to this guy, 37, 35, somewhere in there. But people aren't really reading this part of the market as a blow off top. You know, as you can see, it's like pretty stair-steppy for most of the way. And I think this is really kind of what fucked us up. This is before the halving last year, and we set a new all-time high. That's never happened before in the history of Bitcoin. So already we're kind of like setting a different precedent and paradigm for this cycle that probably reduced some of the volatility that we're going to experience in this cycle. And what I would imagine is going to happen is we're probably going to go down to, say, this level here. What is that? That's right around 50. That would be the lowest I would believe that we could go from this move here. Now, do I believe that's going to happen right now? No, I do not. I think what is actually more likely to happen right now is we are starting to see some evidence, not on the daily time frame, but on the weekly time frame. As you can see, we wicked down close to this 80K level, currently are above it, and that's where we need to stay for Sunday, and I'll talk about that more in Sunday's video. But essentially that's what we need to see by middle of the day, end of the day, Sunday. We need to be well above that level in order to feel confident about not breaking down into this other pivot, which I don't see this super likely. As you know, this is where we're going to be in December. I don't see it personally. I think it's more likely that we're going to rebound off of this. That this is where we're going to get some strength. I think they're just trying to flush out the contracts from today. I read somewhere that it was like a record amount of contracts, I believe. I would need to verify that, and feel free to correct me in the comments if you already know the exact data. But basically what we're seeing now is back to these March, April levels. You can see the price is trying to find support somewhere by these candles. Right about there is 86, slightly lower is pretty close to where we closed, 85.1. Close at 85. So that's currently what the price is trying to do. It's trying to convince itself that it has enough legs to push higher. But as you can see, there's not really a lot going on in terms of other pivot points for the higher time frames. These other ones are semi-prevalent. So this 99 was pretty important, but really we're talking about a week worth of interaction. So not like it's the most important level. The last time we touched that was in June. So again, not really the most important level. And then same thing for May. We interact with it a bit. We interact with it in February. So we spend a decent amount of time at 99, between 99 and 100, essentially 108-ish. So if we're going to see a rebound and a bounce here, which I believe the topic of this video, or the headline that I'm going to use is has Bitcoin bottomed yet? And that's what we'd be looking for, is if we can find strength here and get a bounce, we want to see where that bounce takes us. Now, if we unhide these again, this is the guy that we want to look at. This is the point of the control on the anchored volume profile, this guy over here. And that's really where we want to see price get back to first and foremost, is 96. If we can get back to 96, then there's more arguments for these other points in the volume profile. Like right around here, I believe it's like 105.6. Looks like some people got flushed out from there though, so that's actually getting pulled down to 104.7. And for me, it's definitely not impossible for us to go higher. Like in yesterday's video, I talked about how there is some precedent that we could snap as high as 130. Let's put this guy right here. Oh, actually, not from there. Sorry, I'm gotta go lower. Actually, so I have to take that back. That was from before we had dropped to this level. Now that we have dropped to this level, oh my God, I'm clicking the wrong buttons. Now that we have dropped to this level, it's actually more. No, I don't want to add text. Oh my God, my apologies. My apologies, everyone. So, okay, I don't know why this is not working out. It doesn't want me to measure. So that's not an exact measurement, but I'm doing the best I can. That puts us at 122. And that's what happened the last time that we broke the monthly SMA. And that was in the middle of 2021, which I said it in yesterday's video, but I'll go show you very quickly. That's this guy here. When we broke here, the snap to there, I believe, is about 50%. Oh, Jesus, never mind. That's 140%. Oh my God, I'm so good at making videos. Which one was I talking about then? Oh, this is not the monthly. That's why. That's why. I'm a professional. Don't you worry. This is actually the one that I was talking about. Okay, here we go. You're doing great, Jacob. It's only your second YouTube video. So this guy over here, this is when we actually broke. What is going on with the measurement tool? It's trying to test my patience. There we go. Jesus Christ. So it's about 45%. That's what we saw as kind of like the recovery bounce. And that is, I think, the most likely scenario that we're going to see now. Is we've also broken the SMA, and our best hope is that we're going to end the month above that line at 87.3 currently, and we'll get pulled higher. But what that means is essentially that our best case scenario is going to be let's just use 45 or 50 again. So if we're here, again, that's not exact, but pretty much it's going to take us back to, the couple times that we've hit 120. So this guy right here, 120, 123, it looks like that is the most that we could hope for, like a best case scenario bounce for the end of the year if we do recover strong on the monthly SMA. And I would say that's purely predicated upon us closing above this monthly SMA. If we close November below this SMA, then it's more likely that we're going to continue to drop to the downside. Oh my God, TradingView, more towards this 53K target. So, Jesus. So that's what I would be paying attention to and looking for on the higher time frames. On the shorter time frames, which was supposed to be the purpose of this video, and then I started rambling about other shit. Basically, like I said, we want to get back to 96 for the anchored volume profile. We have a pivot point that I've talked about a bunch of times, 89.2K and 92.6. As you can see, we spent a decent amount of time testing those levels. And then the SMA is currently at about 88.4K. And that's probably, I would imagine, what's going to happen tomorrow is we're going to not have very much volume, and then we're going to start trending towards this level on Sunday. And we're going to have a reaction to that on Sunday. Now, if we react weekly toward it, we're going to come back to this pivot point, and we very well may close the week. Quite frankly, it doesn't really matter where we close the week. I would want, in a worst case scenario, to be above this level, just because you can see over here, that's where we closed in March. So it would be great to be above that level, but we're kind of pulling at straws. There's nothing good about that chart pattern. There's nothing good about that. At least this one was sharp. It recovered and then it dropped, and then we were well below it. This is, we're fighting to hold it. We're fighting to hold it. We're fighting to hold it. We lose it. We really lose it. We're totally gone. And now our best case scenario is a bounce off of this guy, but it's not going to be, one crazy candle right up back to the SMA. I think we may not even touch that again, to be honest with you. I think it's highly likely that we get to 96, and then it's possible that we can get a push to that 105.6 or whatever, and we might fail the 106.7 pivot point is what I would imagine, unless we just get like a crazy wave of liquidity to enter the market, which I know there's a number of factors that could actually allow that to happen. But they keep kicking them down the road. If you think about earlier this year, what were they talking about during this time? They were talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I don't like following the news. I think the news is a waste of time. It's a circus. But essentially what was going on during this time is they were about to announce the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I remember specifically when they were going to have a press conference, and they waited until right before the traditional markets closed, and they were hyping people up. And they were just doing that so that they could completely wipe people out from their IBIT positions. So they didn't know, whether it was safe or not to stay in their positions over the weekend, essentially. And I think that, everyone is waiting for an alt season. I think the reality is that the market has shifted. The market has shifted primarily towards option contracts and towards polymarket, being able to bet on the volatility of the price and stuff like that. I think that there's a way more volume in there than there even is in the price, quite frankly. We still have a pretty large market cap for Bitcoin. I don't know what it is exactly offhand. I would imagine it's dipping back towards probably still over 1 trillion, but maybe not by that much. Let me double check that real quick on the coin market cap. But essentially, that's what we would be looking at. 1.7 trillion. So a decent amount of money is still in here, even with so much being liquidated. But still a far cry from where people expected the market cap to be at this point. I know a lot of people were talking about, 3 to 5 trillion. And it really seems like, I talk about this in my book. I think one of the big things that's happening with price and market cap is they're specifically trying to get as much as they can out of the market cap narrative, comparing it to things like Nvidia and Microsoft and Apple. I think this is the last cycle where Bitcoin is going to be below those companies, other than maybe Microsoft and Nvidia. But it'll top Google, and it'll top Apple, it'll top Amazon, it'll top all of those companies on the next cycle. It'll push way past them, I think, in my opinion. It'll still be way below gold. I don't think gold, that narrative is done anytime soon. I think that that's going to continue to go higher for a foreseeable period of time. But, all right, I think that's enough rambling. Those are pretty much the targets that I would be looking for going into the weekend. Is potentially, if we get volume tomorrow, we could see a reaction off of 88.3, 88.4. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's more likely that this continues to get pulled down and we are just in a bit of range-bound chop tomorrow. There's very little volume typically on a Saturday. And then we see that reaction sometime on Sunday. That may be early morning Sunday. It may be, late evening Saturday going into Sunday. But that is what I would pay attention to, is a reaction to the low 88K. And that's going to tell us if we are going to jump back down into the weekly close, or if we are going to make an attempt higher towards this 89.2K pivot. And if we can break that, 92.6 is what we would be looking at. But realistically, I think they're just trying to shake people out for the month of November. And all that really matters is that we end November above that point right there, 87.1K at the moment. That is our best case scenario. Not a very good scenario regardless. To answer the question of the video, is the Bitcoin bottom in? I think that we'll know more about that at the end of the week. I believe, this is a weekly and a monthly pivot. So that is going to be super important. Sunday is when we're really going to get confirmation of that. If we can stay above this pivot point, then there's a chance that we head back towards this one. I don't know that we get there. Currently where we are in the market, I think our best case is if this SMA gets pulled down below this. But that's not going to happen in 1 week. That would take a couple of weeks typically for that amount of movement to happen. So that's what we're looking for, is do we close this week above this pivot point? If we do, there's a possibility of a rise. If we close it below, then I hate to break it to you, but good game, everybody. And the cycle is over. I don't know what to tell you. That's probably not what you want to hear. But we have to factor in some of the newer narratives, all of the government demand, all of the corporation demand. I saw today that they're going to allow you to pay your taxes in Bitcoin with no capital gains tax, which is a terrible deal. Do not do that. But that, is a headwind narrative of something that's going to keep Bitcoin in the system for a really long time. So certainly not something to ignore. And I'm going to stop rambling. Let me know if you have any other questions. Let me know if there are specific other things you guys want me to cover. I ramble a lot about Bitcoin itself in these videos, but I can certainly make a separate one if you want me to go into Ethereum or IBIT or even gold or SPY or something like that. But for the most part, I just want to be able to go into more depth than I do on threads about why some of the levels that I talk about so frequently are important. Because if you've been following me for any period of time, I talk about the same levels all the time, and there's a reason, because they continue to go back to them. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you on Sunday. Shout out to all of my first couple of subscribers. I already got more views on yesterday's video than I did on parkour videos, which is awesome. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one.